I sometimes feel it's the investigative journalists who fight the corruption more than anybody else. I go and talk to the anti-corruption agency and they all say, our hands are tied, we can't do anything, we have these politicians who is telling us, leave this case, we don't want to solve it. And they're very ineffective. In my country, even when it's an obvious case of corruption or it's an obvious case of conflict of interest, they just say, yeah, it's going on, but there is no enforcement. So it's kind of like acceptance coming from the higher level. And the journalists are those who basically provide evidence, provide the paperwork, tell people this is what is going on. And in some cases, it has led to people going on the street, rioting, saying this is not acceptable, we're not going to take it anymore. And it's because of the journalists, not because of the government organizations. It has a major impact. I mean, at least in the part of the world where I'm working, most of the cases where officials were fired, where somebody was indicted and sent to jail, were because of the reporters who first did that step. And then people were outraged and the government had no other choice but actually to do something about it. In many cases, the government just ignores stuff until it gets really bad, until the reporters say, okay, this is not acceptable and you hear the evidence, this person is doing this, you have to put an end to it. And then when the action happens. Well, a big problem with journalism school is that they're teaching journalists how to cover what's going on, how to cover somebody's statement, how to broadcast an opinion. They don't teach them how to question things, how to dig deep, how to uncover what other people are trying to hide. So actually bringing a generation of young people to start questioning what authorities are saying to them, asking for more what is available. Your government are providing databases, but those are databases which in many cases are actually useless. The real data, the real stuff which expose things are actually hidden. And investigative journalism is actually the point, at the essence of it, is that you expose what others are trying to hide. And the only way to do it is to basically tell young journalists, don't accept what other people are telling you, do it yourself. Question, request, pressure, and then you have a result and impact. It's very important because what I'm seeing in many of the daily newspapers, first, there is ownership interest. And very often I'll read the text and I'll say, okay, this is so not true. I mean, I see that there is a special angle, special interest which is behind it. Okay, and also my colleagues in the daily newspapers, they have to produce 4 stories for that day. They don't have time to breathe, let alone really investigate. And independent centers are actually the only one who, if they're given time, if they're given money, if they're given resources and the good people to work with, they can actually do miracles, and they can pull that, very difficult to get document, piece of data, get a source to tell them something. So it's hugely important that investigative journalism is funded in every single country. I mean, every single country has huge problems with corruption. It has huge problems with the organized crime. And in many of the societies, government is not doing anything about it. They're actually accomplices with it, and they actually get the money from the organized crime figures, from big companies who want to bribe them and so on. It's very, very important to keep that watchdog operating, and that's not going to be a daily newspapers covering 50 stories a day. That's just impossible. Give us some money, and we'll do far more than any government agency can do. Give us some money, give us resources, give us knowledge. That's all we need. And promote transparency across borders.